Trading is maybe the one career where you can bust your ass for 120 hours per week staring into a blue light rectangle and end up down for a week, like you lost money. This was a direct quote from Czech Woblin, and I would like to welcome you to the second video. There exists a notion or desire on CT that the end goal or dream is to become a full-time trader. This dream entails the possession of financial fortune necessary to support such a lifestyle, along with the freedom from the average wagey 9-to-5 full-time job lifestyle. In this article, I am going to propose a counter-argument to such notion. The case for waging, why you probably don't want to become a full-time trader, and why the proverbial path of a college degree to a 9-to-5 is likely better for most. The thought of waging at a 9-to-5 for the rest of your life might feel daunting and gloomy initially, but it actually doesn't sound that bad after an examination of the concept of being a full-time trader. This does not mean that you shouldn't trade or invest at all, but there are better ways to go about that, but more on that later. Why you don't want to be a full-time trader. Dependencies, pressure, and volatility. Let's say through a miracle, you suddenly obtained the trading stack necessary to go full-time trading. Maybe you hit it big on a shitcoin. Maybe you just got lucky. Whatever amount you want, spawned out of thin air. Intuitively, people would be very happy. And who doesn't like free money, right? However, I argue that this would be one of the worst things to happen to a person, which can be seen in the various examples of lottery winners that make it all in one trade just to lose it soon after. But we are traders, speculators, frogs, whatever you want to call it. We wouldn't be this stupid, right? Well, I would argue otherwise, which is supported by the overwhelming data on people losing money trading. But rather than just looking at numbers, let's reason through the scenario and dive into all the downsides of being a full-time trader. First of all, people seem to forget that being a full-time trader entails that trading would then become their sole source of income. So put yourself in that mind space. The only way you can earn and lose money is through your decisions, the trades you take. But with a large enough stack, squeezing out a few percent would be easy, right? I would say that's very wrong, as can be seen by the overwhelming amount of over-leveraged apes that liquidate their accounts, including me, as seen in my last video. The reason this rather anecdotal evidence works is that leverage, by pure semantics, does give them access to whatever trading stack they desire. However, by the same mechanisms of leverage, they proceed to lose all their margin right away and liquidate their accounts, because they don't know how to handle a larger trading stack for risk management. So even if you give people access to a trading stack they desire, they will not expand on their stack they have right now, but rather go as far as to lose whatever the stack they have. As preached by Czech Woblin, leverage amplifies your gains and losses. But let's ignore all of that. In our dream scenario, you are the needle in the haystack that manages to go from nothing to something. Well, in order to make these consistently winning trades, wouldn't you also have to put in the work consistently to make the right decisions? Let's not forget, the markets are PvP. Player versus player, free for all, hardcore. Trick shots only. One of the most noble forms of PvP, I would argue. This entails that you have to outperform everyone, or most participants, in some kind of way. You must have an edge. Not only do you have to develop that edge, but you have to maintain it, meaning you have to consistently put in the work to effectively be better than most participants, be it through information, tools, or most likely a combination of things. This entails an overwhelming amount of work that simply isn't gained overnight. Edge is something that can take years to develop, most likely through first-hand experience, as well as being kept by said experience. Losing money as part of developing that edge to pay the tuition that the market demands. There's a reason most prominent traders of CT have made some kind of a sacrifice to be where they are today. As Cryptolin has so eloquently put it, Many people want to become financially free, but not many want to pay the price to become financially free. In short, you probably don't have the trading stack necessary and wouldn't be able to handle this stack necessary to trade full-time. Even if you were able to, it doesn't mean that you would be able to take the right trades and have the edge necessary to be consistently profitable. A rather extreme example was observed and set forth by SBF, FTX, and Alameda. Institution-sized traders that literally had all the advantages possible and size in the world, but still managed to mess things up and lose it all. To summarize, I present you an excerpt from Harterium's article. Should you drop out of college work for crypto? No. Odds are you're too dumb or unlucky to make it. Stick to what works. The case for waging. Guaranteed productivity, or fiat farming, as Six would put it. So, if no full-time trade, what do? What mean? There's probably a reason wage cucking is the default state for most people, as articulated by Dejan Spartan. Although the saying goes, what's popular isn't always right. In the case of working a full-time job to support yourself and maybe even your family, it's probably the right choice. It might feel like the idea is reinforced and forced upon us in the game of a societal sandbox. But you have to realize, in the same way, you have the right and freedom to quit your job at any time to full-time trade. You have the right and freedom to not be a wage cuck for the rest of your life. However, you probably will have to wage cuck for some part of it, and that's not a bad thing at all. The biggest reason I would advocate for waging is the aspect of guaranteed productivity and the consequent guaranteed compensation of your time. To put it in, trading terms, you could take a guaranteed profit trade almost every day with little to no risk. Basically a high R&R trade with essentially a guarantee that it will play out, provided that you put in the work. The work might have some varying degrees of being unpleasant, and it does take out a decent chunk of your time from your day, but the aspect of it being guaranteed in an environment where everything needs to be approached probabilistically appears amazing. I mean, think about it. Most, if not all, jobs literally pay you for showing up every day. Checking on if you've done the work or the amount of work you've done comes after. In most jobs, you're not actually going to be working every second of the time you're working. You probably do have some time to shitpost on Twitter, use the bathroom, eat your lunch, get some steps in, on company time. Think about it. You can get paid doing all the things you would do anyway, which sounds pretty sick to me. Of course, not all jobs will allow you to do that, and there's a varying degree of management that might hawk around you to ensure that they're getting the work out of you. But that is where your freedom comes in to choose a job that would allow you to do these things, which intuitively are not part of a job. However, because there's the inherent chance of work being at least somewhat unpleasant, you may argue that a large sum of money, such as the one from full-time trading, might free you of the need to work. You might say that you have better things to do with your time, and that might be true. To that, I would like to respond with a concept I've seen somewhere on Twitter, but I can't quite pinpoint the offer. Whatever way you spend your free time right now, be it on the weekend or end of each day, would probably be the same if you suddenly had all the money in the world. It will probably be the same even in 5 to 10 years if you actually enjoy what you are doing. CT seems to have an obsession with having all the time and resources in the world to be able to stay home and do whatever they want all day. However, I would argue that the overabundance of free time would eventually feel like a chore, because you run out of things you actually want to and actually enjoy doing. The weird time period of a pandemic, at least to me, showed me that being able to be home all day and do whatever you want didn't actually feel pleasant after not too long. It felt like I was stuck, with things I usually enjoy losing their touch, and feeling rather empty or similar to a chore. Having to spend a regular amount of time working, contributing to something in some way, provides a healthy medicine against the apathy that might arise from the overabundance of free time. It's what makes the free time feel deserved and joyful, as it provides the contrast needed to properly enjoy the free time. As the saying goes, what's the day without a little night? I will expand more on finding a job along with some concepts of waging in a follow-up video. Specifically, how college, university, and trade school play into all of this. That will be my planned response to Femcell Collector's first video and his advice for Zoomers. But this video is getting a tad bit too long, so let's push that to another day. Not saying you shouldn't trade, but you probably shouldn't trade. Earning your stack. Hate to break it to you, but the answer for the vast majority of people, including myself, is to simply not trade and to fiat farm instead. However, this does not mean that you shouldn't trade at all, but you need to hear me out to really understand this. The idea here being that once you're able to trade full-time to bring in the majority of income that you have, you're probably going to do it. However, until then, you are going to be doing other things to build your stack to get to that point. The concept being that you will do it once you are ready, but you will be ready once you do it. Let me explain a little further. There is no magic number that needs to be reached to be ready to trade full-time. However, Fate Attendees has outlined some guidelines perfectly in his Tendytown podcast. In the podcast episode, Built for It, he outlines the basic necessities for a trading stack for full-time, which include the ability to pay for any possible or probable medical expenses out of pocket, 6 months to a year worth of living expenses, a Dave Ramsey style emergency fund, which is $1,000 to $10,000 set aside for emergencies. These are just some basics for having a trading stack for full time, which is money set aside from your trading stack. The money for your trading stack is an additional requirement to the money outlined before, which needs to be enough to reasonably take the trades and produce the profits necessary to then pay for your expenses and then some, since you want to be net positive over time. Adding all these amounts together stacks up to a sum that is relatively hard to obtain, but not impossible. The concept being described here is that you need to learn how to be a steward of your money. There's no exact way to do so, but building up a stack from the ground up and getting to a reasonable size will actually teach you how to take care of it. Fiat farming and wage cucking present low-risk paths to get to that point, which is why they likely present the best option. As you build up your stack through working a job, there's no harm in dabbling with the markets and deploying your capital into crypto, as you have a cushion to have the money at risk from the safety of working a job. By doing so, you will manage to build up a decent stack over time, while also gaining the experience in the markets through doing, which is the only proper way to learn in this game of financial warfare. Most importantly, doing so will teach you what works for you, and perhaps help you develop an edge in the markets. As you build up your stack and take some trades over time, you will obtain the stack and experience necessary to then trade these markets successfully without taking any catastrophic risks, such as through excessive leverage. I hope I was able to present you these concepts in a reasonable manner. May our paths soon cross again.